They lied to you about the basics of drawing. The basics of drawing are when you go big to small. You simplify with easy to draw shapes that aren't complicated. You don't draw every little contour and all the little details and eyelashes, but you draw the big shapes. And this helps with getting correct proportion and drawing the right anatomy on top of it and having good composition and all the things, right? That part is true. Never leave that. All the artists do it. Here's the part where they mess it all up. They mess it up by making you draw irrelevant shapes, shapes that don't accurately describe the figure. So for example, I'll show this on screen. I bought a course for drawing the figure several years ago, and it would use this as the basic shapes you draw when you make the figure. It's stupid. They make basically what is the rib cage shape as really boxy. So a normal rib cage, like if you're actually thinking what does a rib cage look like, it would have an egg shape where it's kind of more narrow at the bottom and a little bit wider at the narrower at the top and wider at the bottom. Basically just an oval with that little thing. And the way he's having it is really boxy. And it's not boxy at the top, like that, and wide at the top. And then he's also having these this harsh side plane and this harsh front plane. That's also not true. Why is he drawing it like that? Then he has you draw a stupid sphere inside as if that's a thing. I don't know of any sphere in here, do you? Probably not. So, don't use this method. It's stupid. And there are many creators who maybe not teach this exact method, but teach something similar. They teach you these specific shapes that you're supposed to draw when it comes to making a figure, or maybe even other things like animals. I don't really know. There's also, and this one's kind of tricky because it sounds very, very smart, but not quite. It's where you draw the skeleton. So you draw all the bones, like you draw the actual ribcage, you draw the actual spine and pelvis and skull and all the things, the femur, tibia. And that sounds good, right? Because you're drawing what's actually there. You're constructing something simple, right? You don't have all the muscles, so wouldn't that be a good idea? Right? No. Think about this. Let's say you do a good job. You're like, I drew a skeleton, right? And it's good. It's got good proportion. You got the femur with the right shape and the right tilt and all of that. But then, let's say I tell you, put some muscles on it. What are you going to do then? Could you really put the muscles on it? Because think about this. Femurs are skinny. Like I'm talking about the thigh bone, right? They're skinny. They're bones, right? If you put a leg on top of that, it's going to be much thicker. But do you exactly know which part is going to be thick? And how far away from each thing, like each bone is thick? Like let's say this is the femur. I'm having my arm tilted because the femur is at a tilt, right? So we would have the kneecap down here and the head of the femur up here, where it connects to the pelvis, and it has like a little neck with the head on it, right? Okay, you're gonna put muscles on that. Do you know, like, actually, does the thickness come from this side, or does it come from this side? Or is it like 50-50, or is it 30-70? You don't really know how all the muscles and fats and things go on top of it. You don't know the thickness or the shape. It's kind of really, really hard for any beginner or intermediate to actually add decent muscles. I'm not even talking about good muscles. It's hard to add decent muscles on top of a skeleton. And so, if you're advanced, like advanced, right? You may go and learn all those bones and all the attachments, like origins and insertions and stuff like that. And then it would be a good idea because you already have a good understanding of all the shapes and the muscles and things. This just takes it to the next level, right? So, you, as a beginner or intermediate, I know you are because you're watching me, right? You wouldn't watch me if you were like really advanced, are not going to draw the skeleton. However, they make a good point. They talk about how when you draw the skeleton, there are landmarks. For example, the collarbone, this bone right here, also called the clavicle. It doesn't really get covered by fat or muscle. You'll see the collarbone on pretty much everybody. So, it's a good thing to know about. And then they'll say, oh, the kneecap. The kneecap doesn't get covered by fat or muscle, so you gotta know about the kneecap. And they're right. You do. The problem is, they talk about the whole skeleton, which is not the correct thing to do because it's like you don't see half of that. So basically, here's what you're gonna do. And you're probably expecting me to tell you the correct shapes to draw, right? No, I'm not going to tell you the correct shapes because the shapes that I like to use are going to be a little bit different from the shapes you like to use. And you can kind of see this. I'm talking about how these art teachers and YouTubers have told you a lie about the shapes to draw. It's not necessarily fully a lie because I know that lots of these guys actually kind of do that stuff. Now, a lot of it still is just completely stupid, and I bet lots of them don't actually use the shapes they tell you to draw. But still, a bunch of them kind of do, which means they like it. But clearly, I don't. So the thing is, I'm not going to tell you exactly what shapes to draw. I'll probably tell you what I like to do in other videos. But really what you have to do is study a reference, multiple references, and figure out by drawing from the reference in a studyful way what shapes you like to do. So you're still going to do the thing where you go from big to small. You draw all the big shapes first, and then you can add all the little bumps and all the little details and serratus muscle and whatever. First, you're going to draw the big shapes as usual. But you're going to use the shapes that are literally just solely a simplified version of the reference. And you're going to try to get accurate proportion and all that. And don't just passively copy it, but like think, okay, the belly button is this many heads down or whatever, right? Like that's one thing that I always like to do. I like to count heads for the belly button. I say, okay, 1, 2, 3. So including the actual head, the belly button is 3 heads down. And that always helps me when I draw. And you might not use that information at all when you simplify the figure. Because, I mean, the belly button could be either a very relevant landmark or it could just not be. Because it's kind of like at the bottom of the rib cage, but you could just use other things to figure out how long you need to make the torso. I don't even know what to say on the other things because I don't do them. So it's like you'll naturally come up with slightly different shapes than me versus someone else. And it's basically your job to just figure that out by just drawing from reference very consciously over and over again. And you'll figure out something that works for you. Then, after drawing from reference, consciously thinking about proportion and stuff, all these times, you'll naturally have came up with your own method. So it's like David Finch. He is a art teacher on YouTube, and he has his method for drawing, shapes of the body. And I like some of the things he's taught, and I don't like other things. So for example, I think that the way he draws the ribcage area is kind of dumb, right? I feel like he makes this like really big arch here. Like he makes the upper stomach really big and the chest all flat, and then he makes the shoulders like balls and stuff, and it's like, I don't quite like that. Because I like to draw a more tight, like, torso. I don't like to be so barrel-like, right? And that is a style decision, but also it's like, it can work for him, right? Even though I don't necessarily like the style, I prefer something more balanced, more like an aesthetic physique, right? But still, there are kind of people like how he draws. So you can also just think about, well, if I use different reference images, which will happen because you prefer other references, then you'll get a different result. Like I noticed one time, David Finch, he was talking about how he spent a long time learning from Bridgman. He copied every drawing from George Bridgman's book. And I'm like, I don't like Bridgman. I don't like the way it looks. But I'm like, oh, I see how David Finch got the shapes he drew from Bridgman. Rather, when I draw, probably not going to draw from Bridgman because I kind of don't like the shapes Bridgman draws. I think it looks kind of weird. I don't like the shape of the chest he uses and stuff. It's like they're muscular, but not in the most aesthetic way. And I kind of really like the aesthetic sort of fake natty look, if you know what I mean. So it's like when I draw, I'm going to pull up people who I think look cool as fuck, right? So an example of that might be, let's see, who's that guy I was looking at earlier? Let's see. What was his name? Oh yeah, like there's a guy named, he's like a bodybuilder or something. His name is Diego Sebastian. I think his physique looks cool. And so I'm like, I'm going to use him as my reference, and I'm going to study how his anatomy looks. But it's like when I'm looking at drawings by George Bridgman, I'm like, that's kind of lame. I don't like that much, right? So don't ever really think about your style or what method you're going to use. Because really what you're going to figure out is by drawing, you do what's easiest for you. And what's easiest for you is going to be what's going to get you the best drawings. Like here's a weird analogy. In swing dancing, there are very different styles of swing dancing. They usually have the same like moves, or you are able to do the same moves in the different styles, but you'll have like a different basic step. And the basic step is kind of what you default to. It's what you do between bigger moves and stuff like that. So I thought this was really cool when I learned it. So I think the one I'm talking about is the jitterbug. Maybe it's called East Coast swing. I'm not exactly sure. And then the other one is country swing. In the East Coast swing, the basic step is kind of complicated. It's not actually complicated, but it's just complicated enough to make things a little bit annoying. Because it's like you step to the left and it's like 2 counts, and then you step to the right and it's like 2 counts. But then you step backward 1 count and then forward 1 count. And it's just like, if you have to keep up that rhythm through all your dancing, it just kind of throws you off the whole time. However, with country swing, you know what it is? Step forward, step back, step forward, step back. Now that your basic step is so simple, you can throw out all the coolest moves on beat without having to worry about things. But like the steps you do. However, with like the jitterbug or East Coast swing or whatever it is, it's like annoying. It's like, oh, I have to go slow, quick, slow, and it's just like annoying the whole time, right? Like the best dancing you'll do is when you have a basic step, because then on the basic step, it's so easy to throw in all the cool, complicated stuff. So likewise, when you find a set of basic shapes that you like for the way you're drawing, then it's so easy to just pack on all the details and stuff, right? Like, just imagine this. Let's say I forced you to draw the skeleton and then put muscles on top of that. Think about how hard that would be. Even if you have a reference. Like, let's say I give you a reference of a cool bodybuilder or something. And then I have you draw his skeleton. First of all, it's probably not going to be that good because it's so covered in muscle. And then I need you to add the muscle on top of the skeleton. It's just going to be so weird, hard to do. But if I just give you the reference of the bodybuilder and tell you, keep in mind proportion, keep in mind basic shapes, you're going to do a decent job because everything's going to be in order. You don't have to worry about some weird skeleton underneath it. So, as the basics have said all along, keep it simple. Go big to small. All along, that's the basics. It's just when people twist it that I hate it. They're like, oh, you have to draw this shape. I recommend you draw this weird boxy shape. It's like, no, that's not it. That's wrong. I don't like that. Also, link in the description is a pre-sale to a community and course that I'm building. if you join now, it'll be much, much cheaper for when it actually officially launches. So there's nothing inside right now, but in the future, there'll be my shredded anatomy course where I go over all the anatomy and go over all the muscles and how to shade them correctly and cross hatching and everything you'd want to know. Also, we're going to have weekly live calls where you can show me your art, I can critique it, and I can teach you all things about art. As well, you can recommend things to me. You can ask me for advice and things I might even turn into videos for the channel. So I highly recommend you join now because it's much cheaper. That's all. Goodbye.